Now, yeah, it's okay. I got to explain to Lella, this is always the case. You push this button here. Okay. When is your turn? It's 50 years that these things goes on. Would you believe it? This year is going to be our 50th anniversary. What a partnership. Anyhow, so I was born and raised in Milano. Lella was born in Udine, that is on the Upper East Side of Italy, just above Venice. And she comes from a family of architects, and I have some architects in my family, so it was kind of unavoidable they would be doing architecture. Also, when we were young, in the last century, a century ago, there were no school of design per se in Milano, so you had to go to architecture anyhow. On top of it, the architects were saying that an architect should be able to design everything from the spoon to the city. As it turns out in my life, I've designed a lot of spoons. No cities yet, but I'm still alive, you never know. So it might happen. I would love it. I would know exactly what to do, where to put a conference hall, things like that. I should start with the water, Well, it's another story, another lecture. Anyhow, we are talking basically to young people here, so we will give advice to young people. Let's see, this is one of the great advantages that you have when you get old, that you refer to young people as something which is very remote from you physically, but actually very close, because you never grow old. This is a great thing. The body goes old, but my mind, for instance, is stuck when I was 30 years old. This is why I keep looking older girls around, Mind goes much faster than the body. So, in order to help you to understand our design a little better, and I would say that we see design in general as the organization of the information that is semantically correct, very important detail. Syntactically consistent. Most of the time the design doesn't work is because it's not syntactically consistent. And pragmatically understandable, as just Martin was saying before. If it's not understandable, you might as well forget about it. Don't do it. Save your time, go to play. I like to be visually powerful. I can't stand limpy design. I like it to be intellectually elegant. That means not formal elegance, but intellectual, the kind of the Goethe likes, And above all, timeless, because I can't stand trendiness. I can stand obsolescence. I think obsolescence is a social crime. The entire industry, the fashion industry, everybody is geared to obsolescence, and that's okay. Really, when you get old, you begin to understand that there is room for everybody. There is room for us, and there is room also for people that think in a different way. So there is also room for obsolescence. Fashion without obsolescence would be out of business. But design doesn't need to be, trendy indeed. So this gives you sort of a quick introduction key to our design that we've been pursuing for the last 50 years. So I try to go as fast as I can, but 50 years are...
Talking too much.
Already I'm talking too much. Okay, we start back to 55. 1955, nobody in this audience was born. Raise your hand if anybody was born before. Just Wally, yeah? Just my friends here. just one, two. Good, isn't that amazing? Well, so when you were long from coming to this globe, I was already designing this kind of things. I was a student, and I was working for Venini. Venini used to be a very, very good glass company in Murano, in Venice. We were going to school in Venice because it was a very good school at the time. And so I was working part-time on this glass factory. This was one of the lamps that I've done, you know. And the top part is where you get the light, the decorative part is below. And then I did another one again, you know, looking for marrying the lampshade to the base, which usually at that time was separate, you know. And the funny thing, you know, go around the world to museums, you know, and you go around design museum, I don't miss one. And then I see, you know, these lamps, and it says, designer Massimo Vignelli, 1931, dash. Oh, I love that dash. The more glasses that we have done when we got married, you know, and this is the day of our wedding. Can you believe it? The guy in front is me, you know, that's that side. In the middle is Lella, and the other one is my best man, Paolo Venini, you know, that was pushing us to the United States, where we went as soon as we got married in 1957. We stayed there for 3 years, and then 1 year in Boston and 2 in Chicago. Great city, by the way. And then we went back to Milan for 5 years, and then we went back to the United States again, and we've been there ever since. So really, most of our adult life has been in the United States. When I was near Boston, I went there with a fellowship from a silver company. And since I had a glass experience on the back, I designed some glass and silver pieces, putting together two materials which I like and I like to work with. You know. And so, you know, we did prototype, and then these people of this company, they took it around, you know, and then they came back from their trip, you know, and they says, well, Massimo, how did it go? How did it go? Well, Massimo says, well, you don't understand the American market, you know, you don't understand. People, they're not interested in this kind of object. Well, that's too bad, I say, too bad. And we did our market research, and it didn't work out. So when we went back to Italy, I proposed this to a company, Cristoforo for the silver and Venini for the glass. They did it. They didn't do any market research, and they sold them for 20, 30 years. You see, so I learned a very important lesson at the time, that market research is a science invented in America to to protect management, as Martin was saying before, from fear of failure. You know, clients are indeed obsessed with that idea of failure. They don't like to take risk. Bad clients. Good clients, they like to take risk. This again was confirmed by scientific form before. You know, the advice that I give to all the young people. If you get a bad client, we always got a bad client, you know, at the beginning of our career. The best thing you can do is to drop it. Drop it because from a bad client, you're going to get a worse client. From a good client, you're going to get a better client. So when we learned that, we got nothing but better and better clients all our life, you know. And it's through better clients that really you can express the way whatever you have inside, you can understand the client's problem, and you can really make a terrific contribution, which is the only reason why we are alive in our profession. Back to Milano, worked for the Piccolo Teatro, a fabulous client indeed, and that is when I discovered this idea of information bands. You know, one typeface, that's much better than using 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, and it's much easier. And few type sizes, that's also another good advice, you know, forget it. They have many type sizes so that you could use the most appropriate one. This doesn't mean that you have to put every 72 of them in one page, you know that. You know. So anyhow, let's go fast, because otherwise we'll never get there. Poster for the Biennale in Venice. The only thing which all the arts have in common is light. So I play by cutting type, with a tissue. There was no computer at the time, so we had to do everything manual. So we cut these letters with a computer, with the scissors, and then you're there to get the picture, they all fly off. God, it took the whole day. It took the whole day to do that. Then, you do book covers, and you present the book covers. The publisher usually turn it down if they want something else. So the best thing to do is to design a system for the book covers of a publisher, or at least for one of the series. And in this case, it was a paperback, so I put the type the other way, so it looks much bigger, and it's only type. So there's nothing they can argue once they buy. Got a client that was making tiles, plastic tiles. I went to see his factory, and I discovered that he was making Mickey Mouse ashtrays. So I say, well, if you make Mickey Mouse ashtrays, maybe you can make something better, design-wise. How about some dishes, stacking dishes? Okay. So I went back at the office, and in half an hour, by the end of the day, we had the entire design made, presented to the manufacturer. He started to make, and then he got the Golden Compass Award. You see, it praised. Not only that, but as soon as it was done, the Museum of Modern Art got a set of them, so they have it in their permanent collection. Then somebody else saw it over there, Heller, a company in the United States, and revived these things, start to import them, making them in the United States. An entire generation of people in the United States grew up with these kind of plastic dishes, which are very, very, very comfortable, very practical, very good. We hate furniture against the wall, so we design. And also another thing, we can only design when we need something, because then you know what you need, So we need a sofa. At one point in your life, you need a sofa.
For the middle of the room.
Well, yeah, exactly, because we can't stand furniture scattered around.
We have a very long room that needed a co-op.
A divider.
Right.
And so the manufacturer asked me, what kind of finish you want on the sofa? I said, well, I'd like to have a black Belgian marble. He said, well, fine, I can do it. The only problem is we'll go in the floor below, go through the... So I said, let's make it a little lighter. What can you do? So he said, okay. So he said, lacquer. How about lacquer, like a grand piano? And that was really a revival of the lacquer furniture. 1964, there were no lacquer furniture around. There were only kitchens that were lacquered, at that time. The last time that lacquer furniture came on the market was with Eileen Gray in the early 30s, Here we are 30 years later.
Unfortunately, we provoked the torrent of lacquer furniture that it went down from the 60s and so on. There was so much around in Italy at that point. It was too much.
The table, it becomes a cube when it's closed and so on. This is a young Vignelli, 1965, Like a doctor with a white smock, We wanted to impress people, so we were wearing white smocks. So you get in the office, it was like a clinic, Because we always called it client, not client, patients. My patient, and you see, and if the patient even begins to argue something, they say, let me ask you a question. When you go to the doctor, do you argue? That's right. Every day, when you're young, you have to build. Every day is one brick to build up your, Chinese wall. Is that. So 1966, we designed the subway. And there she goes. She argues all the time I talk. I say 66, then she says 67. That's why she's here. To argue. Unbelievable. Every time. And anyhow, we did the subway sign. When you do a subway sign for New York, well, you become an expert. In the process, you become an expert. 475 stations, the most complex, a fabulous kind of a subway system from a functional point of view. But at that time, it was really a mess. Every sign was made by hand. So we make a system to make the signs, modular system. And when you go to New York, you will see it. Anyhow, now it's black instead of white because they were afraid of the graffiti, but it's the same basic system, you know. So, poster for Knoll, come on. All the graphics for Knoll, the furniture company, fabulous client. I told you, you got to have glamorous clients. If you get glamorous clients, you get a glamorous job, you get a glamorous view in the profession, you become glamorous. It's just because of the client. It rubs off, you know. Can you imagine if you say, well, I designed the stationery of a famous Hollywood actor or actress, you know. Wow, everybody say, you know, you designed the stationery, oh, wow. You know, that's the way the world is. American Airlines, designed 1960, Lella? 7. Okay, we agree. 1967, one word for a logo. One word, two words, American Airlines put together, half red, half blue. What could be more American colors than that? And it's the only airline that hasn't changed anything since 1967. Pan American disappears, TWA is still around, I don't know if maybe disappeared too. And so partly disappeared, those which were there at the time, they changed 2 or 3 times, like United, you know, their logos. But there's nothing you can change on American Airlines. I mean, what can you change? How can you improve it? It's so beyond, it's so beyond them. You see, that's what when I talk about timeless, this is the example, you know. You cannot make anything to look more American. Maybe you can use a different typeface, but it would be less effective. And what do you want to do it in Broadway type, you know? And, you know, so, or, you know, Cooper Black, you know, I don't see. So anyhow, let's go fast. You know, the airplanes are not painted, so there's no weight, and so they're more economical. Heller is the guy that was making the plastic dishes in the States, so we designed the box with a big name Heller there, you know. But we had this idea of making keeping the name the same size throughout. If you get a big box, it says Heller. If you get a small box, you get Hell. And that also sounds, if you get a little box, you just get H. But who cares? Image is different from identification. Identification is more important than anything else. Magazine design. You know, when you do magazine, everybody is doing magazine design, you know, being very clever, putting layouts, one picture going out here, one picture going out there, another silhouette at the bottom, and so on and so forth, you know. And the funny thing is that then they obsolete very simple, very fast. You know, this is 1967, you know, again. And look, it could have been done yesterday. Nothing can obsolete on a full page or a full bleed or a double spread or things like that. This is my passion. I love this. This is the map for the New York subway, the most beautiful plate of spaghetti ever seen. You know, and with every line has a color, every station has a dot. How could, you know, if no dots, no station. It couldn't be any more simple than that. Fantastic. I mean, it's... even a bum can understand that, you know. And but we made a big mistake. Well, you know, the whole thing is 95 and 45 degrees, just like in London, which is a very civilized city, so they never had any problem. But New York, you know, is a continent by itself. You know, there is all kinds of people come from all kinds of places, and they could understand the spaghetti work. But there was one element they could not understand. Why Central Park, that is so long, it became square, you know? So, and that is the mistake I made. I made a stylized geography sort of reference. There was no need. I should have done a white background, so to speak, and everything would have functioned very well because the spaghetti works very well. But the moment you see something that becomes unreliable, like the geography, then everything else becomes unreliable. You see, it's a very funny thing, the way the brain works. So anyhow, I missed that at that time, but I eventually understood. It's a great satisfaction, 30 years later, but it took a long time. I was tired of doing a slick brochure for Knoll, and then I found out that in Milwaukee, they had a new printing machine for color newspaper. That was the first time the color newspaper was done. And this was 1972, yeah, something like that. And so we started to do all the brochures on newsprint, which was very exciting. It was also the time where all these underground papers were coming out,
The exhibition for the 25 years of Knoll, and they had at the Louvre. And we had this big space that it was completely cut up, but a series of exhibitions that we've done that they divided with walls, with soffits, and all these kind of things. So we asked the permission to clear the space completely, but then we found ourselves that we had to create again a scale for the furniture because it was so big. So we did this cube, they were 8 feet by 8 feet, on wheels, so that we can move them and create, the exhibition per way as we go, of putting one inside the other. And then we did also the plexi cube to put in more chairs in order to have more things. And on top of the cubes, there are these cube with a projection, either of the big designer or of other situation or installation, all these kind of things.
And everything was movable because yes, it was a traveling exhibit. So newspaper design 1970, first newspaper design with a total grid, not only vertical grid like all the newspapers were done, but also horizontal. That implies, why that? Because to speed up the entire process long before the computer again, when everything was still manual, and all the spaces were modular, the typefaces were few, and so, one, and the type sizes were few, and again, a great benchmark, for that field. Another newspaper, and Bloomingdale, the biggest, not the biggest, but the most exciting department store in New York. We did everything, the logo, the packaging, and again, sheer luck. We live out of sheer luck all the time. I had just received a catalog from a paper company introducing this fabulously shiny, glossy paper. It was the time where the fashion was glossy. It was the wet look, at the time. The boots, white boots, courage, that kind of stuff, And so I couldn't decide which color to use. So I said, let's use all of them. I had this fabulous idea to portray the liveliness and vitality of the store, not with one pattern, not with one logo, not with one, as a matter of fact, not even logo. The boxes don't have any logo, so you can reuse them. But they have all the colors. You go to a counter, they give you an orange box, and then a yellow, and a green, and a blue, and a blah, 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 blah. Then you put everything inside the shopping bag that says Bloomingdale, and you go home, you take everything out, and you revive the entire shopping experience. You can color the stuff. So, okay, another time.
So this is another piece of furniture with the lacquer that, so we did many more furniture with that company also for the office and all these kind of things. And this is a Credenza with high feet. It was called the Bufala.
Right.
And then this is us as hippies.
Look at my pants. I had an afro like this. This was just at the beginning of the afro. Angela Davis was a crew cut by comparison. Let me go back. Right. Don't push it, otherwise. Well, I gotta go back to this. I gotta go back. Now, after having done the plates, the same guy asked me, can you do some cup and saucer? So fine, I said. I went back to the office, and one evening, I was there alone, off the phones, and I started to draw these things, and it's nice. With plastic, you have to keep the thickness as much as possible consistent so you don't have problems. And so the handle became like this, And then we had a model made, and I discovered that, oh, look at that. There is a nice hole over there. I like that kind of hole. That's a surprise. But, the handle is a very good grip for the thumb to go there, and so on. So I was delighted with that design until I got a call from Heller, and it says, Massimo, we got a problem. What's the problem? I said, well, everybody's complaining about the coffee. I said, what do you mean it's complaining about? Well, Massimo, you don't understand. You're used to Italy, where people drink a demi-tasse. gentlemen, you know. And they say, we're in the country of affluence, we fill up the cup all the way. And when the coffee gets up to the handle, it goes down, it finds a nice gutter to go down, and then it meets the saucers, which is absolutely flat, like, so it keeps going, you know, boom, on the tablecloth. So it goes on the tablecloth, and everybody's complaining. They want to sue us because, you know, America, they like to sue. This is why there are so many lawyers. You know, what can we do? And I say, well, can they feel a little less? Not in America.
So then for Eller, he wanted to do a set of glass that can go in the oven. And so we started designing this thing, and I decided to do the border that become the handle, but become also, you know, something that you can use as a dish and so on. And the top of all these pieces was another dish. And we play again with the material. So we have the simple glass on top, and then the vertical part is all engraved with lines to give it a different texture, so you don't see too much the food, and also to really play with a different reaction of the to light of the glass. And so it was.
What you do when you design glass or silver. You play with the light, either reflective or trapping. And trapping the light is great, by the way.
This is a series of
rings
of which we see some. And this is the first necklace that I did, just with a square tube cutter in cubes, and then just a little ring that connected. And this is also in the collection of they sell it at the new Bauhaus. This was the important project that we did for the Minneapolis Museum, and it was the addition designed by Kenzo Tange. But we were heavily involved in the design of the interior, also the galleries and everything. And we wanted really to minimize the display pieces in order to have the art as really the protagonist. So we work with this plexi that at the time was, you know, a very huge moment in the product of the time. And so you can see the vitrine in the middle, and also all the vitrine on the side with the glass shelf that could be moved, and you can see from the slot, and the door that were absolutely flat. So it was really a nice sort of combination. We had
It's funny, I mean, at that time, a lot of those details were not existing, and this is always the case in a lot of our work. We have a motto, as a matter of fact, that says, if you can't find it, design it. You know, so when you do a job and then you need a chair, you can't find it, boom, you design it. You want to have a system of shelves, you know, and you look for all the system of shelves, and you can't find it, so you design. And eventually all these things, they go into the market, either designed by us or by other people as well. But this is how design evolves. You know, someone has to break. Light boxes, when first we started to use light boxes, they were not there. And you know, then eventually it came up. Look, we see, we're becoming a little more affluent, a Liechtenstein on the back. A church, you know, we design all kinds of things, you know, department stores and museum and shops and you name it, exhibitions, etc. But when the church came about, and that was funny, I get a phone call from Pastor Peterson, and he says, we would like you to design the interiors of our church. And he said, oh, sure, why not? What was the church? And he says, St. Peter. And I said, I waited all my life. I thought it was Rome, and instead it was the St. Peter in New York. It's okay, we do St. Peter in New York as well. We have to take care.
This was again a good client, because also the committee was very, you know, open to recommendation of this kind of thing. The architect, that was Stubbins from Boston, was open also to work with us. So we, as a matter of fact, we changed this is a square with a cut that is on the diagonals, and we changed the orientation of the church. And then we started our design. That was very flexible again, because we love to have flexible thing. This is in the back is the entrance, and you come down, and this is the baptismal font that they wanted, to be. And then all around, there are these steps, and some of these steps, as you can see here, this is the altar and the pew and so on, they are movable, so that you can create the same situation. The other situation with this platform. And we had also the central altar and all the pews around. Then we designed all the pieces, again with our friend in Milano.
This is the department store Magnin in the West Coast. And again, every piece, these are all modular pieces you can combine, make a boutique, make a shop, and make everything. Generally speaking, department stores are built like a temple, and when it's done, you realize that the traffic flow doesn't go the way you design it. So you're stuck with it. They have to take it down again and so on forth. So in this case, instead, if you find out it doesn't work, you just move it. It's like
and you can see the big element can be fitted inside with many different things. And they fit eventually also in those niches that are all around the perimeter. The round thing is the cashier. The hexagonal is for the changing, and this is one of the views.
Look, it's okay. This is a very long story, but it's all the design for all the publication of the national parks in the United States, and it's a total system, horizontal bands of information, black band of identification, 5 different levels of cartography, and mainly we train the entire design and writing and photographer group to work on a certain way, and I came up with the most cohesive, large programs that I have ever seen. It's the gigantic design program. There are 475 national parks. The Center for Architecture and Urban Studies in New York, again, design all kinds of things. A magazine for the same group,
This is a table that I designed because I really wanted to have this thing of having this big cylinder at the corner. And it is completely without the conjunction, because there is just a pin and the top on top, and the table doesn't move. Another one is a rectangular that then open and it becomes a square, turning the rectangular. And the latest one that we done, when it's open, is 3.5 meters, and the center also is all in wood, the pivot, so it's very nice. This is another chair that was done in a very simple way, because there is a frame that is in tube, in aluminum, and then they put it in a mold with the pumping foam. They put it in an oven. In 5 minutes, it comes out.
They put a sock in top, and
right, it's done, and it is very light.
One of the things that we like in design, particularly with furniture, is to involve the user. And we have this notion that we jiggle all the time between identity and diversity. And that we do that game both in graphics or three-dimensional design, etc. This is a table. You can position those 4 pieces any way you want, any way that pleases you, in other terms.
And you can have a bigger top, a round top,
but the table
whatever.
is always the same. It doesn't lose its identity. And you see, that's where the play comes into the picture, And there's more books, and let me go fast in books. More tours in silver, and picture in glass.
This is all program for Chiga, that was one of the biggest luxury chain of hotels in Europe.
And in Venice, and they look, well, it's a long story. We have to there are so many stories behind every one of these things. After they close that hole on the cups, that's the mug, and they make a mug. Now the mug takes, quarter of a liter there. It's a lot. Nevertheless, they go to the top. There's a pitcher. If you give them a pitcher as a mug, they will use the pitcher also. You know what? That's how you conquer the world. Well,
this is the Japanese collection. Yes.
Well, the name is Japanese, but the plastic dishes. You see, the point is this: you set up the table, candles, silver, the whole thing is romance, blah 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 blah. The whole thing is fantastic, and then you start eating, and the more you eat, and the more that table becomes a garbage. You know. So I say, well, that is a design problem. How can we do something that at the end of the meal, it doesn't look like a garbage situation? So we designed these dishes, and at the end of the meal, instead of going in and pick up all the leftover, the chicken bones and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, you know, you just push your flatware inside, and you put another plate on top of the other, so you make a nice plate of dirty dishes, a clean plate of dirty dishes. Well, that is design. You see, that's all about. 80s, 85, here we are in Aspen, one of our first designed for the International Design Center in New York, Fratelli Rossetti's shoes, IBM personal computer, very, you know, done in linen instead of a plastic binder. I hate plastic binders. They're the worst thing, the worst invention of the last century. Books, magazine, again, let me skip all that. Books for all my friends, architects. I've done on Richard Meyer. I have 2 books in process right now. When I get back on Richard Meyer, 2 new ones. And I love to do guides because they're very logical. You know, when we had to do this, I don't know if you ever seen a book about cats and dogs. They are the most pornographic books ever seen. These poor cats, you know, the photograph against the blue velvet or red velvet. You know. So vulgar, unbelievable. So I said, well, this is a great chance to photograph them like by Avedon, you know, like on a you know, seamless white background. And look at these cats. These look like models from Vogue. You know, I love them. This is a very quick story. I'm going to tell you about ambiguity again, how it works. So we had an exhibition, so we printed the announcement on a tissue paper, and all nice Bodoni, all very rhetorical. But then at the end was too rhetorical, so I had this desire of making it a little loose, and I crashed the whole idea, crashed the whole paper, and so that the type got all distorted. It's much nicer, much more intriguing, and mail it that way, okay? So I got a phone call right away. It says, Massimo said, I just got your invitation, but I don't know what happened. I got it all wrinkled up. Do you have a flat one, nice flat one? You know, this was about client showrooms in Chicago for Italian manufacturers. And again, the idea is to make memorable spaces. And another one in Los Angeles.
And this we work with Dan Flavin because we were showing the movable walls. This was a company that was starting to do those panel walls that you can move it. And it was really very boring. But at a certain point, just before, we had seen an exhibition of Dan Flavin, in which in the gallery they created this corridor in order to separate the various installations. So we talked with Dan Flavin, very happy, talked to the client, and there was an illuminated client that understood that that was a good idea. So we did it, and it was very successful because all the architects and so on were going to see this thing. It was like a museum. And so it was a great success also for the product. So sometimes art and design can go together.
Other showrooms for Artemide, the lighting company in Dallas, so it looks like Tutankhamun tomb. And the same one, let me go faster, and the same one in Miami, it's all color, Miami Vice.
The idea is that we divide it all in little spaces so that we can divide the family of lamps instead of having all this chaos that you see many times. And this, for example, is the outside lamps.
I was asked to design it right in the middle of postmodernism, which we always hated. You know, postmodernism was the 5 minutes of celebrity for people that would never got it otherwise. So for 5 or 10 years, you know, all these guys, they would never make it within the discipline of modernism. They come out, you know, boo, with postmodernism. So I hated all the time. And so they asked us to design a tea set, you know, and everybody else, like Bob Stearns, Michael Graves, or Hans Olein, all my friends were doing very nice postmodern kind of things, you know. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do it. So I took the basic shapes, you know, Euclidean geometry, you know, timeless shapes, the pyramid, the cube, and the sphere, as they are killed, devoured, trespassed by a snake of postmodernism. Actually, that whole... And postmodernism was about metaphors, and so there was become, you know, a typical postmodern kind of object. A table, we like, again, you know, a relationship, cross-fertilization. One of my favorite typefaces is Bodoni, which has very strong vertical strokes and very thin serifs. And there is a table, like a Bodoni, boom, big, you know, strong vertical things done with the encaustic. That is a Venetian kind of technique that we just revive, and so on and so forth, with a, you know, a glass top like that. I will show you later, you know, that was done, what, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it is, a version of the same table done now. Other tables, let me go faster. This again, you know, identity and diversity, you can change those legs any way you want it, and the table changes but doesn't. Stacking chair for null, more graphics, let me go fast, again, identity. We're getting even more affluent with a fabulous office.
Our office.
This
is the entrance. And, you know, this is the same table that you see before, Massimo office, my office, different tables, and the studio.
And we closed that office in the year 2000. Now, it's fantastic. We went from 35, 40 people down to 2 people. Will you believe it? We do just the same amount of work. But with a computer. Before it was without a computer. And more things, you know, more showrooms. Let me go fast.
Showroom for Poltrona Frau. We started working a lot for Poltrona Frau. And this is all their auditorium, gallery.
And a chair.
Chair.
This chair was designed for the television, so when you sit, it looks like you're in an easy chair, but actually you're higher. So your diaphragm is not compressed by the emotion of being in front of TV. And because that chair was on TV every night, they sold thousands of them.
And they're still selling from
it really
87.
Works,
it's still one of their. Then they wanted to have an executive office. Naturally, we use their material for that, normal chairs. This is interesting because we achieved to have this white edge that is like, you know, the ornament by subtraction. Because when we were there, we saw that they were cleaning the bottom so that when you put it in the oven, it will not stick, you know, the round that is on the bottom. And we said, can you clean also the edge? And that created this pattern.
Glasses, okay, it's another story, flat way. We like to design things which look like they've always been there. You know, those goblets, actually, they're all the same height. Instead, all the other glasses are like these and details.
That's a different diameter.
You know, and coffee, okay, books. You know, we have to go fast because we have a very short time. Bodoni, one of great, people always ask us to design a typeface. I think there are already enough typefaces, so, but we have adjusted the proportion between the lowercase and the uppercase to go with more contemporary typefaces. And we use it all the time. It's a nice type and so on. And also we increase the number of weights. You know, we have light, regular, medium, and bold. Before, Bodoni had only 2 weights. And we use it all the time. You know, just about that time, we did an exhibition in New York. And in the new computer age, the proliferation of typefaces and type manipulations represents a new level of visual pollution threatening our culture. That was exactly. Out of thousands of typefaces, all we need are a few basic ones and trash the rest. So come and see a few basic typefaces. The exhibition was about 4 typefaces, you know, Garamond, Bodoni, Century, and Futura, I guess, or Helvetica, I forgot. Anyhow, and you know, and that's it. You know, but it was the time that the computer came about, and everybody that was using the computer could squeeze, stand, oblique, all kinds of things on the typeface, doing all those kind of manipulations, you know, which were really polluting the environment. And not to mention even design. Those were the desktop, you know, desktop publishers, who they are. You know, if they would be doctors, we would be all dead. You know, more work, and again, wine label. I love to do, you know, there is a say in Italy that when you're young, therefore say, when you have teeth, you have no bread. When you have bread, you have no teeth anymore. And it's exactly the same thing. When I was young, I could drink a lot of wine and liquor, and I have very few wine clients. Now that I cannot drink anymore, God, I have nothing but wine clients. And, you know, more books of all kinds. You see, what is important in design, in graphic design, is not dimension, it's scale. That is one important detail that I like to recommend all the time to keep in mind. Scale is intangible. Dimensions are tangible. You measure them in centimeters or inches, you know. But scale is, you know, evanescent. You have it, you get it, or you don't, you know. And more graphics, more graphic programs for the Guggenheim, or showrooms.
The first thing of showroom for the Trafalgar, the first edition was just, you know, with this.
We have to go really fast, so our time is almost over. Then, you know, we start to design clothing because we couldn't find any clothing. You know, you can't find the designer. So we start to design.
Everywhere.
You know, I solved the problem for myself. I don't have to, you know, this beyond fashion anyhow. Watches, you know, watches all the time. We design everything, as a matter of fact. You know, we hardly buy anything anymore. This is
design pot need to be kept warm, so it's done in 2 pieces, you know, the cast aluminum, the thing. This necklace that you wear, that you can wear in many different ways.
Oh. No, it's like, get it here. No, like if we're both doing it, nothing happens.
Well, I do that.
You know, we're getting older, you can see now. And United Cause, I mean, corporate identity for Benetton, for Sisley, and for the
21
store.
Club,
21
Club.
The World Trade Center in Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam. And in there was a canyon that was this long building that was connecting 4 towers, and it was a 2-floor building. And there was this canyon in the middle where they intended to put a garden. And I hate those gardens inside because it's just trouble and you have to put lights and all this kind of thing. So I said to them, we are in Amsterdam, why don't we do a canal? And they accepted the thing.
As it won't be enough water in Amsterdam.
But this, you know, is just one shot, but this became very interesting because many times we have also steps going down to a lower canal. So we use the glass balls of this great artist of class and it works very well because there's light inside and you see it when you go by because it's all glass. This is our go back.
No time.
This is our
I would love to show it to you.
This is our theater chair that is very different from what there is around because I wanted to have not all those scallops that you see here, but a more architectonic thing and did the back all together. And this first used by Gary in Bilbao.
We did also all the graphics that you have seen for the museum in Bilbao, you know, this thing.
And this is an edition for the airport chair.
Corporate identity for Ducati. For ferry boats in England, for the Great Northeastern Railway in England, the entire package of corporate identity, livery on the train, inside the train, all the graphics and so on. You know, this could talk for an hour just about that thing.
First class, second class.
And bus shelters for J.C. Deco, and all the signage for the Italian railways. And there is some there. And the graphics for the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. This is the Donner's Wall. The Donner's Wall is fantastic, typed like this. And I've had this fantastic idea that they should spread the rumor around. If they get a donation of $1 million before midnight, December 31st, so the last day of the year, they will get their name that big on the wall. You know, in Texas, it's full of millionaires, so they got all the big thing. But on January 1st, their name will be that small, you know. So they all rush to get
it. It is beautiful here. It's like it's
the name of the building is 3 meters high, each letter. You know, at some time you get your ego really take over. This is a menorah, you know, and
goes around.
You know, I'd love to go back and forth.
2000, 2005.
Oh, you're really now getting old. But the same, you know, just the same kind of work, the same kind of passion, the same amount of curiosity. I mean, there is, I don't know, this is an exhibition, this is a photo, but this is already the second generation of Vignelli. Our son is a photographer, took all the photographs for this exhibit. We designed the exhibit.
This is when the euro came out with the coins. The piggy bank came in fashion again, and the silver guy, the choir one is another piece of silver. Pasta.
Yeah. Would you believe it? Polish spaghetti. Well,
very good.
You know, wine labels. You know, I love these little labels like that. You know, again the trade shows for the wine label company, the glass exhibitions. Come on. Okay, another exhibit.
Of jewelry.
Of jewelry.
And then here we go with the second generation of the showroom for Poltrona Frau, in which I really play a lot with light and materials. If you go so fast.
Yeah, you talk about it. Talk in the meantime.
And, you know, in the ceiling there was these channels that were going in different directions depending on, you know, on the plan. And then the walls and the corner were always with a little channel with a light. And that wall is in a sandblasted mirror that is a fantastic material that absorbs the lights. When I have to be in a historic palace, I change completely thing. And if you go back, when you see those bars across with the lights, the bars were already there. I didn't do that. So these are various situations, and the many Poltrona Frau. And this again, with this kind, I change the lights and put just like a stone that comes out from the wall so that you don't disturb the architecture. Using what there is. This is the last one in Miami. It was a terrible space, and we couldn't do much. We do those two oculus to get some light, with columns to create all these niches where there's supposed to be one chair in each, but they didn't.
Then light boxes becoming the source of illumination and display for an exhibition of old cars. And we're getting to the end. Books, again, promotional thing for a building by Richard Meyer in Miami. Another book on a Meyer house, another on Meyer museums. And this is a new architectural magazine for Central America. Again, we designed the whole format for that. More wine labels, as I said. You know, now we cannot drink wine, we get wine galore. More silver. More silver. This is a very new chair that is all done in one shot. It's made in nylon, and it's a chair about pretty big, and boom, it gets done in one shot. It's such a emotional thing to see it. Bam, 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 coming out like that. You know, they're great. And this is the table that you have seen, designed 30 years ago, done instead with different kind of legs, with the legs in stainless steel, and it looks like something that is designed today. It fits today's situation. You see, when design is timeless, however, there are vibrations that could be made more contemporary by the use of material. And this is a necklace that Lella has designed, sort of Elizabethan look, you know, and that our time is over. Thank you very much. Thank you.